down, Teresa. Oh, jeez. You ready?
Yep.
I guess I'll leave that on for you. Hopefully it'll last. Actually, I'm gonna turn how long that battery's going to last.
Yep. It's howdy doody time.
Volume's okay?
Yep.
Okay. Here we go.
Got it.
And now for something special. The unit is self-contained with its own saddler, farrier, wheelwright and so on. It's a rigorous training dished out who know all there is to know about horses, and it brings results.
We take you behind the scenes now to show just some of the interesting aspects of this training.
Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine, the award-winning #1 podcast who creates sound of horses from the ground up. Mike Stine is a registered journeyman farrier with an APF1 accreditation. On this week's show, Talking Terminology, where we're going to define oblique, the science of anatomy, and slanting. Also, a discussion on how straightness affects the hoof. And also, if you're not on YouTube right now, jump on, because Mike brought in some Hock Joint models. All this and much, much more will be discussed here on Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. And over to my far inside is Mike Stine. How are you?
I'm doing good, Travis. How are you?
I'm doing okay for now.
Okay for now.
Yeah, I just I took a little weekend trip over to...
Never left the farm.
Never left the farm. No, I actually went down to Orlando. So I apologize if you're watching me on YouTube. I kind of put on my fanciest, nicest long sleeve shirt I could find and got my hair cut, but I went down to Orlando, Florida this past weekend to see some friends of mine that were in a band and stuff. So we left on Friday, drove down there, saw the show on Saturday, enjoyed, the whole day Saturday walking around Orlando, my hometown, and then came home on Sunday afternoon, got home about 8 o'clock at night. It's an 8-hour trip, door to door, from here down to Orlando, and we broadcast just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, a beautiful little town we like to call Marshville. So, on that note, Mike, did you do anything this weekend?
Where was I this weekend?
I don't know.
Was I somewhere?
You said you were somewhere. You said you sent me a whole...
I've slept since then.
You sent me a whole bunch of pictures of a whole bunch of horses lost in the woods or something.
Lost in the woods, yes. I was at the Carolina International down at Rayford, the Carolina Horse Park.
Uh-huh.
Had several clients entered, and...
Hold on, because you sent me some pictures here. So now, and don't forget, for every podcast we do, we have a matching YouTube video as well. So make sure you go over to YouTube and like and subscribe to Mike Stine over there. And you can see all these videos and pictures in real time as we're talking about them here on the air. So as this loads, I'm going to switch back to camera 1. So tell us how you got involved and why you went down there. Was this a spur of the moment, or were you invited?
No. This was not exactly a spur of the moment. This was, I had several clients that were entered. There were a couple that did not make it there because of weather and stuff the week or two before and where they had to be. Mm-hmm. And was going down there to support and take care of client horses. The weekend before, I had a client who had a problem, and I ended up making a run down on the Saturday for the warm-up and decided they wanted me to do it as opposed to who they had on the showgrounds.
So, pardon the pun, did you get roped into doing this?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so... My wife and I, as you know, her Facebook feed is totally different than my Facebook feed.
Right.
And she's always showing me pictures of horses and ponies and all the stuff in the equine community. Mine's basically about food, concerts, friends and fellowship and that type of stuff. She was showing me a picture of a jump, for the 100 jumpers. A jump that was literally almost 6 foot tall. All the rails were about 6 foot tall, and they were like 1, 2, 3, 4 stacked in a row.
Right.
And she showed me these pictures. Now, these are the pictures, if you're watching this on YouTube, kind of the same effect, but not as high.
No, these are at different levels. They're, depending on what level you're competing has to do with how high the jumps are. And this is actually part of their show jumping. I don't know which division that was, but this was at we had all the way up to 4-star eventers at this competition. And
so do you know this person the rider on this
I do
horse?
not. I had people that did the course, and it's where I could be at the moment with a shot with a camera.
Well, that's a nice little jump. That's a nice little...
kind of hopping over it. Yeah.
And here's another jump here.
That's not a bad little launch. It's in the middle of there's a run of three three in a line right there, and that's the middle jump going
And I'm
over.
looking at the background sky. It looked like a beautiful day out there.
It was a gorgeous day, and you see the pine trees down close to Southern Pines. That's why they call it pines, all the pine trees, right?
Right, exactly. So they had a big old tent. Did they have like vendors and stuff out there showing their wares?
They did have a few vendors, but the barns were full, and then there were several tents like that were full of stalls also, because they had that many horses from all over the place, even horses from other countries there.
I would think horses would be too tall to get underneath these tents.
Oh, those are like big circus tents.
Okay. Now this one looks like
Getting ready to take a bath.
This one is a jump over a huge tree log that's been shaved down.
Right.
And
into the pond.
And is that part of the training course or the actual?
That's part of the cross country.
Okay.
This is 4-star cross country right here. And normally when I'm at these things, I never get a chance to go down and watch. The part I would watch would be the cross country. And the 4-star these are the guys that are going to be hunting for spots for the Olympic team and all that sort of deal.
I feel kind of silly. I showed you a couple weeks back that one video of my wife actually just getting Diego to walk over the cavalettis that were like flat on the ground.
Start somewhere.
And here's this horse jumping over a huge tree log into almost what it looks like.
That horse way back in history started off on cavalettis over the ground.
Right, but he's getting ready to jump into this big old watering hole, this big swimming pond there, which is probably...
And Diego probably will never do what these horses are doing.
But the weird, crazy part is Diego's coming up on 5 years old. How old do you think this horse that we're looking at here on the picture is?
Older than 5.
It much more older than 5?
Could be approaching teens.
Okay.
Could be.
Okay, so let's say
not in the teens.
Let's say this horse is 12, 13 years old. So are you telling me that Diego right now, coming up on 5 years old, I've got 7 years to get this horse to jump from the little cavalettis that are on the ground that took him 35 tries just to walk by it before he decided to walk over them to jumping in the pond like this?
Yes, but there's a problem with that whole theory.
What's that?
Isn't Diego planned to be a dressage horse?
Yes, I know.
This is not dressage.
I know it's not dressage, but still, it's one of the things. Now, this horse looks like it's lost in the woods. It's like those golfers that take that slice and they're looking for the ball on the green, but it's actually in the woods. What is this horse doing? It's jumping over a
little narrow brush jump.
Okay.
And it's been through the pond. It's hit the brush jump, and it's going to circle and make a long gallop and go down to more jumps and go through another water obstacle. And these guys at this level, they're going a long distance. There's a lot of obstacles, and once they get on the long stretches, they're moving out at a pretty hard pace.
This lady right here is going to get trampled if she does not move.
Actually, she's in the right place.
Is she really?
She's there to make sure other people stay in the right place.
Oh, so she's a spotter.
Yeah, she's a bit of a spotter. Actually, I had a nice little chat with her.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. She said, we were going to another place, and she said, "You're the farrier." And I said, I am one, yes. And there was a number of people I spoke to and caught up with. I just spoke with Jim Hamilton, he was always involved with FEI stuff the years I was doing the fork trials.
You're that crazy farrier with that show.
Yes.
With that show that everyone
I'm not a complete unknown. And actually the reason they knew me there was because of my involvement with FEI horses.
Now, this jump right here looks like they're jumping over one of those 280-gallon propane tanks.
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing. Grass looks good, though.
It does. You approve of the grass?
I approve of the grass.
Okay,
yeah.
good. Just passes your standards.
So everything looks good there. If you want to see those pictures, go over to YouTube as well. And, oh, look at that. Look at that cat. They're cleaning each other. Well, we have a new kitten, and so... I know, this is just outside of the realm of things. They were fighting for the longest time. Now look at them. They're best as buddy. I'm sorry. I'm taking away thunder there, Mike. Sorry.
Your cats can take away my thunder. It doesn't take much.
So, you had a good time there? Was it a one-day event, or were you only there for one day?
No. I was there for a couple days. The competition there, it was a 3-day event, meaning you have, your show jumping, your dressage, and your cross country. And each phase is on a different day, and because of the number of competition horses that were there, they started on Thursday showing, and so you end up with Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So they finished up Sunday.
So this was this past weekend while I was down in Florida soaking up the sun. You were in the woods getting ticks and watching horses.
Right.
Well, it sounded like
ticks won't bite me. They're scared.
Well, it sounded like both of us had a great time. And you guys are going to have a great time listening to this show because we got a lot to talk about. So stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back. You okay?
I am wonderful.
Okay. Make sure this looks right. I'm going to move this over here. Does that look better? You don't care.
No. No, I can't look. Yeah. You got so much to work with here.
I know. You ready? Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. If you have a question for Mike Stine, the way you get those questions into him is to go to equinedynamics.com. At the top of the page says contacts. Fill out that little form there. And for everyone who fills out that little form, put a return address, a physical mailing address. And we'll send you out some prize packs, some stickers, some magnets just for being part of the show here. Just our way of saying thank you for listening to us as well. And listening to us right now and getting ready to listen to is Mike Stine. How are you?
I'm doing good. Good. How are you, Travis?
I'm doing all right. I went down to Florida with long hair, about as long as yours, and I came back with hair like this. It was just too hot.
Nice.
Too hot for my hair to be that long, which is short.
What if you could get your broomstick out there and set you up some jumps so you can play like you're jumping over them?
Yeah, I should do something like that. Now, talking terminology. This segment of the program is usually where we talk about things that you might hear your farrier talk about, your vet tech talk about, or just general conversation that people have in the barn. And sometimes people will say words and other people might not know what the actual definitions are. So this is our section that we call talking terminology. Now, right now we're going to define oblique in the science of anatomy and also slanting. So Mike, when we say oblique or you hear someone say oblique when they're referring to a hoof, what are they talking about?
The oblique would be the angle they shot the hoof.
Go ahead.
Can I get the hoof model?
Yeah, go get the hoof model. Yeah. You want me to get it? Oh, are you talking about Peggy?
The one back here.
Yeah, that's Peggy.
Yeah.
I call her Peggy. Hold on, I'll go get it.
Sorry. Should have thought of that ahead.
Should have threw out an audible here.
Yep.
Behind the scenes. Yeah, I've named her Peggy.
Ah.
You want that camera on?
Yes, please.
Okay. You're looking at? Is that a good angle for you?
That will work.
Okay.
That will work.
So what? I had to take a little segment and go get Peggy out of the other room. So if you're watching this on YouTube video, you saw that whole ordeal happen right there in front of your eyes. So we're looking at what I call Peggy, and Peggy is it's a horse's foot model.
Foot model, yes.
And from what section to what section are we looking at here?
Okay. When
we're talking oblique.
When we are shooting x-rays of feet, we shoot, and we're pretending like this is our generator for our x-ray. We got our plate back here, generators here. Mm-hmm. A deep would be shooting from front to back, and that would be your DP. Our lateral would be straight on from the side, 90 degrees out from the side, and shoot to our plate. And on an oblique, we would either go 45 here, 45 here, and then you can do obliques on the quarter if you need to. But if somebody's talking about an oblique, they're shooting like this or like this, and that's the joint or the hoof capsule that, we start straight on from the knee. We do oblique shots, which are at the 45. Because you can see in the x-rays, you can see different things will show up when we shift just a little bit. So
when a normal x-ray person comes out, like Megan Ratkin.
Like Megan, yes.
She normally 99% of the time it's laterally, and what was the other word that you said? Laterally?
A DP, dorsal, DP dorsal palmar.
Okay. Or
lateral,
okay,
or DPs, or she may shoot a skyline.
But I mean, traditionally, she doesn't do all those shots when she comes out, or does a lab tech or a vet tech do that?
It depends on what we're looking for.
Okay,
on where we'll shoot. There's a number of different shots that we will shoot when we are looking at feet, from many more. And we use DPs, we use laterals, we use obliques, we use skylines, we have positions we set up just purely to try to catch what's going on in navicular shots to, so yeah, there's a number of different angles we can shoot at a foot.
So when the X-ray tech comes out, that person says, what are we shooting today? And you say, we're doing a DP, we're doing lateral, or we're doing obliques. It's not set in stone like I'm going to shoot.
Right. And you're on your obliques, you have several oblique, like on this horse, you probably wouldn't put a generator under the horse, but we could come from the heel, the lateral heel to the medial toe. We could come from the lateral toe to the medial heel. You can actually, on a front foot, bring it around here and go from a medial toe to a lateral heel, and it's versatile on the hind end. I wouldn't suggest this as much because of safety reasons, but you could shoot from a medial heel to a lateral toe, and this would all be a 45 oblique. And then there are spots between there that we could set up another angle if there's something we need to see. We can shift just a little bit. Are we seeing this or are we not?
So here's a thought that I had. So, you have a chop saw at home, right, Mike?
I do.
Okay, so a chop saw is literally 0 degrees, right? When you chop straight down, it's 0 degrees, right?
Unless you turn
to an oblique angle now.
Right.
Yeah, so you can shift your chop saw to 15, 25, I think they're locked in, and then 45 degrees.
Right.
Now, when you're shooting with an X-ray, do you have a protractor saying that this is dead on, this is a 30-degree angle, this is a 45-degree angle? Or is it just kind of like, let's shoot from this direction to this direction? Is it an exact science as far as the actual number? This is 22.5 degrees this way. This is 22.
There are blocks that are made with those angles in them, but and most of your blocks have a piece of wire at the 90, at the 90 point. Mm-hmm. And as long as the foot's set in the exact right position. But if you shoot 1,000 of them, we got a good idea where we're shooting.
Okay, so what do we need? What do we mean when we talk about slanting?
Slanting.
That's what it says. It says slanting. Neither parallel, excuse me, parallel nor the right angle or specific or implied line. Is that another term as far as oblique? Is it called slanting?
It's all part of that. We can slant it to a different
Okay,
angle.
so that's the same thing.
Parallels beside each other, 90s here, and oblique is somewhere between.
So
and
go ahead.
It's like, even with the formation of joints, you see this is a hock. And
you're ruining the show, Mike. You got hawks coming up later in the show. Oh, no, go ahead.
And this joint would be formed at an oblique angle to your cannon bone.
So when people talk about, in talking terminology, when they define the term, we're going to shoot oblique, they're also talking about shooting slanting. So
right.
They're interchangeable. Those two words are interchangeable when you're talking about shooting X-rays.
Right.
Okay, I guess that's the direction I was
going. You're slanted.
Yeah, because I would be, I'd like to shoot an oblique angle, and they would look at me and go, you have no idea what you're talking about.
You are oblique.
And then I would go, hey, can we shoot that at a slant? And the technician would go, yeah, we can do that for you, Travis. And then there you go. So I learned two things that describe the same thing.
Yeah, and the technician would sit there thinking, yes, we'll humor this idiot, right?
Can we get this guy out of the barn, please?
Right.
All right. When we come back, we're going to have a discussion of how straightness affects the hoof. And Mike's going to talk about this article that was printed in the American Farrier's Journal. And we'll discuss that when we come back. So stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back. You ready?
Yeah.
You have your Farrier's Journal ready?
Let me get the Farrier's Journal.
That's a good start. Have me run around flipping pages for you, too.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Do you need to show pictures from that? Because if you do, and move Peggy further down the table, because you need to get it, if you want to get it on camera, is what I'm saying.
She's galloping.
Okay. Do you need to get that book on camera?
I will get some of that on camera.
You're going to have to move your honk. See where your camera angle is on the video? There you go.
But I'm going to end up using the hock in some of this also.
That's fine. Ready? You're drinking your generator, X-ray generator.
Got to make sure I got enough radiation in my system.
It'll clean you out. All right, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. Make sure you follow him over on Facebook, and you can see all the different articles that Mike talks about. He puts up a bunch of pictures, a bunch of continuing education articles up there. So if you're any fan of a horse or horses or the equine world, and you just want to learn a little bit more about your passion, whatever, how you're involved with the equine world, just go over to Facebook, search Equine Dynamics, Mike Stine. Make sure you like him over there. He's fixed his page now, so we were capped out at about 5,000 people, and now we're just slowly building up where he's a public figure now, so he can get up to about 10,000 people over there. So make sure you subscribe to him over there as well. And over to my fire hand side, I've already subscribed to him, is Mike Stine. How are you?
I'm doing good, Travis. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. Now, we're going to talk about how straightness affects the hoof. Now, you were out here the other day.
Right.
And you were you were trimming Dominique and Cayenne, which are the two horses that I have here on the property. And Diego's off the property. And I was out here, and I was helping you and just kind of rounding up the horses.
You ended up doing the trimming for me. Yes.
Mike showed me how to trim. I lost half my knuckle. No, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, Mike, honestly, how does Dominique's feet look? And you said that Dominique's feet looked excellent. They were good for the horse. It's a shame, and this is what I said, because Dominique can only take my wife so far as riding.
Right.
Because she's got a little bit of a tweak here. My wife rides a little bit harder than Dominique at her age and her condition that she can perform and get my wife to the next level. Hence us buying Diego. And I said to Mike, I said, there's nothing wrong with this horse. I said, it's a shame that these perfectly good feet are on a horse that can't take my wife to the next level. And we both kind of sat there and looked at each other, kind of chuckled back and forth.
Chuckle.
Because, do you remember me saying that to you?
Yes, I do. No, not a bit. Yes, I do.
But it just shows you the importance, if your horse is not capable of riding or doing whatever that you want the horse to do, don't forget about the horse. Make sure you're still taking care of the horse's feet. Make sure you're still taking care of all that stuff. And I looked down at Dominique's feet, and I was kind of using some of the information that I learned from the show. I'm like going, this looks good. I'm looking at what I don't know. I'm just pointing. I just know visually what I'm supposed to look at now. So tell us now, I'm looking at Dominique's feet. Tell us how straightness affects the horse's foot, in just anyone else's horse in general practice.
Well, the distortions that we're chasing in the foot, flares, if you got a compression problem and you've got a crooked leg, and the damage, the forces that the misalignment of the leg put on the hoof is something that we're always trying to get under control as a farrier. Because part of the problem is if you do get some odd distortions and you leave it, that can twist the leg into a worse position.
Is that a toe in and toe out?
Toe in, toe out.
Okay.
Situation. Not just that, but that is a part of it. Yes. And
I'm learning.
You're saying that. You're just saying that.
Well, I mean, honestly, Mike, I learned more on this program in the last 2.5 years that we've been doing this than just hanging out with my wife in the barn, which, I'm not there to learn. I'm there for support, but still, I'm learning so much doing this show with you.
Wow. You're just saying that.
I'm physically patting you on the back.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So tell us about this article that is in the American Farriers Journal and straightness.
It was talking about an article by Deb Bennett, and Deb Bennett's always worth taking a look at. Mm-hmm. And there's more access to stuff like this out there than ever. Also, with our social media, there's some good stuff out there, and some stuff is random, whatever.
And a lot of that you can find on Mike Stine's Facebook page. And if Mike Stine puts it on his Facebook feed, you can guarantee you that it's somewhat valued information. It's not just like, hey, look at this horse in a pretty meadow. No, this is valuable information and good reads for the most part.
Right. And but if you're going to look at that, you need to look at all the angles, because there are plenty of things put out there to prove what a certain person has obsessed that their point is, and has not necessarily covered all the angles. I had someone on me about shoeing horses should never. But then you look at the horses that I'm working on and what they're doing, and if you put an open-heeled shoe on a horse, it always destroys the back of the foot. And a lot of that has to do with, A, how you prep the foot, what kind of mechanics you build in the shoe. Sure, if you do a perimeter fit shoe on a foot that is migrated forward to the bone column and you sit to that, you're going to crush the back of the foot. But if you've done something about the mechanics of the situation, it's a completely different game. So whose hands is it in when you're saying it always does? Because there's never an always. And for some of these horses that are competing hard, some people say, well, we should never do that with horses, period. But we do. And what we're doing as a farrier is usually not even about the foot itself. It's about what we're doing with the horses. It's about the bone column mechanics, tendon ligament damage, and that sort of thing. In my world, that's why I'm shoeing most of the time. If I'm shoeing a horse, that would be why.
So what does the article say there that Deb Bennett was talking about? Why did she deemed why to write this article about the straightness and how it affects the hoof?
Well, we had talked about the front end last time, and we're kind of going to talk about the hind leg a little bit. And there's some old drawings where, and they're out there all over the place, where the hind legs are drawn straight in line with the body.
Now, if you're watching this on the YouTube video, you can see this article. Mike's got it sitting in front of him, and he's going to use it for some diagrams and stuff. So now's your chance to go over to YouTube. And make sure you like and subscribe to Mike Stine over there as well. So what are we looking at here in this article?
And this would not be normal for a horse in reality, but some of these pictures were drawn way back and decided that's what perfect was. And some of these things we still stick with, where in reality, when you look at the hind end of a horse, if you're straight on with the back, you're not looking in alignment with the leg. So you got to get in alignment with where the leg is truly aimed. And if you're looking at a horse straight on from the back end, like down dock of the tail to his pole, most horses, well, the hocks are angled in, it must be cow hocks. Well, that's not necessarily so. But you got to get directly behind the leg. The leg goes all the way up, from the hoof all the way to the hip socket. The hip socket is a loose fitting ball joint, so it can rotate. Mm-hmm. So you got to find where that leg is. And then you can look at a leg and decide, have we got a properly formed hock? Or is the hock formed this way? Is the hock formed this way? And all the way up the leg. Because, if I've got a horse that this is what we're doing with the hock, I'm going to have some unusual pressures in the foot. Now you got a horse that is turned out and we got a flare, and we take care of the flare, and it kind of drifts back into a better alignment with the body instead of turned out too much. And you got to remember with hind legs that the stifle has to flex outside of the rib cage. If you've got a hind leg that is aimed completely forward, like some of these old drawings, the hock, when it flexes, runs into the back of the rib cage. Well, then the horse can't move properly.
So when you're looking at the back of a horse, Mike, I think of me as a child.
You are a child.
And you yourself. I'm sure your mom probably said, stand up straight.
Right.
Stop, you're in church or something. Stop wiggling around, stand up straight. I know if you were to tell me, even now, stand up straight, there's no way I can sit there and have a doctor look at me from behind. The horses don't know what you're doing. So if you tell a horse basically stand up straight, the horse is constantly, it's swaying, it's shifting, it's looking, its ears go up, its ears go back. It's constantly readjusting its weight, its body. I mean, how can you go, okay, look at the back of the horse. Maybe the horse is standing funny. Hey, that horse has got this and that horse has got that. But then he'll sit there and he'll square up and you're like, oh, no, he's fixed. I was wrong. How can you be so determined when you're looking at a horse who's constantly fidgeting or constantly just sitting there, no matter how obedient and how trained they are and how docile they are on the lead or the cross ties and stuff, or even just standing there on the lead rope, that you're looking at it and you're in your mind physically getting a true definition of what that horse's back is telling you?
Well, there's so much that goes into it. And, we always talk about, so when farriers look at feet, now a good farrier should be looking at the whole package and have some knowledge of what's going on with the body. If you're seeing lack of development, overdevelopment, underdevelopment, that shows us a pattern. You can take a horse and stand it up square and say, well, he's square.
And then all of a sudden he gets lazy and does this number.
Right. Right. Like we do.
Yeah, exactly. Like me.
Okay. So does he drop a hip? Does he whatever? Exactly. They have patterns they'll tend to fall into, and that's going to, okay, this is where I need to be thinking, because he wants to rotate here, wants to rotate out on this side. None of them want to stand dead square at the back end. If you're being lazy, you don't stand with your feet aimed in the exact same relationship to your pelvis on both sides.
No, you usually stand on one foot with the other foot kind of like cock-kneed to the side.
And then how do your shoes wear?
I always have to replace the right one before I replace the left one.
You run more on your right side.
I do. I run in circles.
Isn't that something? Well, you know what? Horses do the same thing. We see it in compression in the hoof. We see it in, the shoe wear. We see it in the muscling. And I'll tell you, as you watch horses and you watch them step and pick up load, and the way that foot settles in, and are we getting any odd rotation in the hocks? And, I've been looking at horses for a long time, and I've had to learn to obtain information quickly. And there are some real tricks to that. But if you, and breed has something to do with it. If you got your drafty, chunkier breeds, and some of these warm bloods that are on the thicker side, they'll stand on the back end with one hind toe pointed east, one hind toe pointed west, and the hocks touching each other. And you say, oh my God, but as soon as he steps off, if he comes up and he kind of squares up with his body and steps off, that's probably okay. Now, if he keeps that odd position, we got a problem. And, as you're working with a horse in the ties, they have a foot up, they have a foot go down, and you can see what the bone column is trying to do. Watch him as he's loading his joints, because they're always moving that joint. How is that joint hanging in the air, and what is happening as soon as he starts putting pressure on the joints and compressing it? Right?
Right. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick little break and come back. And Mike actually has a couple. He's got a joint, a Hock Joint model.
Hock Joint, yes.
I'm sure you heard it banging around in the background. So now's your chance to go over there to YouTube, and you can see this in real time. He's got it here in the studio. He's going to tell us all about how he got it, why he got it, and what the benefit of looking at this, and all the different varies as far as the joint movement as well. So stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. Like I said, join him over on YouTube as well. Just search equinedynamics.com. I'm sorry, Equine Dynamics on YouTube. Equine Dynamics Mike Stine. Let's put it that way. Follow him over on YouTube. And we also have little snack bite bits over there called shorts over on YouTube channel. You probably see them. It's like shorts. It's like the TikTok version of the little short 60-second videos. You can see them over on the YouTube channel as well, and you can scroll through them. You can see the past guests that we've had here in the studio, and check all those out as well. If you want to comment on those videos, myself or Mike Stine will respond to you as soon as you put those comments up there. We've been talking to a bunch of people out there who are asking questions, and a lot of video traction. People are watching those and saying thanks for the information, and thanks for all the help that we're giving here on the Equine Dynamics show. And over to my far right side is Mike Stine. How are you?
I'm doing good, Travis. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Got back from Florida. I'm doing all right. Ate a whole lot of bad food over there.
Bad food.
Bad. We had pizza one night. We had I had like buffalo style tater tots. It was horrible. We didn't eat well. I mean, I say we didn't eat well. We ate good, but I
thought pizza wasn't that in New York famous for pizza, and buffalo stuff's New York.
Well, in Florida they had this coal fire oven where they actually had a big coal oven.
Coal-fired oven?
Yeah, it's made out of coal or wood butter, and it's they slide the pizza in there.
Okay, not like the coal they dig up out of the ground.
I don't know
that probably tastes good on your pizza.
It was awesome anyway. So, all right, now if you're watching this on the YouTube video, now's your chance. You're going to see Mike has a whole bunch of different skeletons and models that he's brought or acquired over his career of being a farrier. You saw Peggy earlier in the show. And now we're going to talk about this Hock Joint. Hock Joint model, and we're going to have it here on the video. Ham hocks. This is a horse hock that we're going to talk about here. So what are we looking at here, Mike? How did you get this thing, and why do you carry it around with you? I know you could do. Mike does clinics as well, and he brings this out there with him.
It was an actual joint.
Use it for a toothpick.
Use it for a toothpick, and it was something that was brought to a limb dissection, and I confiscated some of the parts after we were done, and cleaned it up, and it is glued back together with. I think it is glued back together actually with a little bit of Equilux.
So are you missing a side where your right hand is on that joint? No, your right hand.
Your right or my right?
No, your right hand. Is this piece right here? Should there be two of them, or
there is another one on the other leg?
Oh, on the other leg. So that one right there doesn't have both sides, like a hip joint or something.
No. You got a left and a right.
Okay. That's what I was wondering. Okay.
And
it's like putting Legos together.
It's like putting Legos together, yes.
All right. So what are we looking at here, Mike?
This is a Hock joint. And
is that a front leg or a back leg?
Not on a horse. It's definitely a hind leg on a horse.
Okay, so a Hock joint is the back leg.
Right.
Okay. What do they call it on the front leg?
They don't call it a hock because the horse does not have a hock in the front leg.
Okay.
The hock is related.
I'm just asking.
Okay. Okay. We call on the front leg, the knee would be kind of relationship positioning on the front leg as the hock. But the knee on the front leg is actually constructed more like the human wrist. The Hock joint is constructed more like the human ankle. The actual true knee of the horse with the patella and all that would be the stifle in the hind leg, that which would be the next joint that would be more proximal to the horse's body, I mean closer to the horse's body.
So if I was to look at Diego and I go, he's got knees on the front and hocks on the back.
Right.
Okay, that's what I need to know.
Hocks are on the back. Yes. So this is, you've got your lower joints that have been glued together, and all the bones are in there, and they're not as defined as they should be. If I was doing this now, I might do it a little bit different as far as how I glued it together. But one thing that always is interesting about this joint is you see right in there, you can see a wear spot. And right there, you can see a wear spot.
Is that little black dot that's on the...
That little black dot.
Okay, show the one in your left hand again. Oh, I see it right there.
Right there.
I'm going to move my cursor around so everyone can see it.
There is actually a bit of a hole worn into the bone.
I think that's probably what my dad's going through right now, because my dad's got bad knees, and the doctor said one joint is bone on bone. So would this be considered the bone on bone?
So, yeah, bone on bone, and you have damage here, and you can feel it in the joint. Okay. When I talk about hocks and range of movement, and talking about looking at the muscle in the horse, if I've got a horse that has flexion in the hock, the quadriceps that are above the stifle, same position as a human. Because you got to remember, the hind leg, they're standing up on their toes. So if you were standing up on your toes, your heel would be up in the air, which this would be your heel. Right?
Yes.
Roughly. So if I've got a horse that is working too straight in the back end, the pelvis is out from under them, they're not flexing. As far as taking impact, it's bang, 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 bang. If I've got a horse that's flexing in the back end, here's your shock absorber, and the quadricep becomes a big shock absorber, which also means, okay, if I'm looking at a horse standing in a barn, you walked it in, is a horse flexing or not flexing in the hind end? One of the key points I can look at is the quadricep muscle. If he's not flexing, the quadricep won't be developed. If he's flexing and working it, the quadricep will be developed. And the same thing as far as the shape of the rump. And what is, if a horse is is rolling the rump under and pulling and flexing, the shape of the rump is going to be much more rounded out. If it's flat on top, he's not pulling it under and flexing. If it's flat on top, you're going to have atrophy in the unused muscles, and the horse will be more developed down through the hamstrings because he's trying to pull with his leg straight, and it will develop down the back of the hamstring. So, if you want to walk up to a horse and decide how the horse is moving, there you go. That's part of it. Now, I'm not saying I never watch horses move out, because I do plenty of times. If I need to confirm something, I do. But you should be able to look at the signs the body's telling you and pretty well know how a horse is moving before it ever steps out.
Now, one of the myths or urban legends that I always heard growing up as a child, that the hardest thing for a horse to do is to walk backwards. Is this true?
They're probably not really designed to walk backwards. They can learn to.
Okay. So
it's not going to be in their first nature to want to walk backwards because they can't see where they're going.
So horses...
They don't have a backup camera.
Beep, beep, beep. So, over the horse's life, they've always walked forwards. And you, as a farrier and this great deal of knowledge, you look at a horse and you're always watching it walk forward. Is there something that you can tell in your tackle box of information if there's something wrong with a horse when you're trying to get it to walk backwards? So, for example, the doctor will say, okay, walk this way. If I've got a problem with my hip or whatever, and they say walk this way, and I walk fine, and then all of a sudden he's like, okay, now walk up a flight of stairs, and because I feel pain. Getting a horse to do something that it's not used to doing it, would it display?
Well, one place we do use walking backwards, and when I've had horses in rehab, I do it quite a bit, but you got to. Most horses' first nature is head goes up, back goes hollow. If they're dropping a hip, they will not go in a straight line. They'll kind of roll off to one side. And you can use that in building a horse because you can actually manipulate them to go the other way in the turn back. But the first thing you got to do is convince a horse to drop his head, relax, and roll into it. Because what you want them to do when you're asking them to back is to raise their back up and roll their pelvis under. If you can get one to do a collected back as opposed to an inverted back, you can use that to condition and build backs up on horses, and it's not that hard and it takes very little work, but you got to spend a little time. Head down, rock back, head down, rock back, or head down, because you want them to get their body in the right position so they can go backwards in a collected and up body position, not an inverted body, not a panic run backwards.
I've seen my wife, on the cross ties getting Dominique out here on the property to walk back on the cross ties, and the first thing Dominique does is she'll flip her head back,
right,
and rear her chest straight up as she's trying to walk back, like, whoa, like back, almost like back, as I'm getting away from the microphone, almost like back pedaling. Like this,
right.
This is new. This is different for me. So you're saying that the horse would physically need to kind of roll over to, head down, back up.
Kind of what they're trying to get a horse to do when they trot in dressage, but doing it backwards or walk backwards. And the worst gait for people to ever really get together with a horse is a walk. If you can get the walk nailed down, you can probably nail down everything else as far as a really good, collected, strong forward walk.
Now, the Hock Joint that you brought here and that bone on bone that you were showing us, once the horse gets to that bone on bone, is there anything that you can do for the horse to eliminate or is there steroids? Is there?
Well, that would be a veterinary question, but yes, there are joints that they inject. The problem with this one is getting into the major motion joint. There's plenty of horses that have damage in their lower joints, and over time, that some of those will start calcifying in, and as they're calcifying in, they can get real painful. But once your lower joints fuse up, there's a fair amount of horses that can go back to a significant amount of work. But when you start getting into the major motion joint, because most of your movement is in this main joint. The rest of them kind of work as a bit of a shock absorber. And I'm not going to say there's no flexion, but there's not a massive amount of flexion.
All right, guys, one more little segment, and we'll let you get back to enjoying your ponies. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back. Ready? What did we learn? Wrap it up?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. Don't forget, Mike Stine can perform a clinic out at your location, and the way you can get him to come out there to you is go to equinedynamics.com. At the top of the page says clinics. Fill out that little form. Mike will schedule you. He can come out to your event, your barn. If you got more than 2 horses in your barn, if you got a bunch of trainers, you got a bunch of riders in there, Mike can come out, and he's got this big, huge slide projection presentation that he can come out there and perform a clinic out at your location. Just fill out that little form. And also, if you like Equine Dynamics podcast, if you'd like the Equine Dynamics podcast to come out to your location, your event, your family gathering, a business, and anything that you've got going on out there, we can do that and broadcast from your location at any given time. Fill out that same form. Just put podcast in the subject line. And over to my far right hand side is Mike Stine. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing well. So what did we learn today? Talking terminology. The definition of oblique, which is also called slanting, when you're talking about the science of the anatomy of a horse's foot.
Yes, the oblique is between your DP and your lateral shot, and you can oblique in many different positions, and you get to see some things in your obliques that you may and may not do in the DP and the 90, and sometimes you need to take some obliques to make, okay, is that for sure what I'm seeing?
So you can do like a 22 degree, a 45 degree, 35 degree.
Yeah.
Anything that's not 0 or 90 degree on the horse's foot.
Right.
Also, how an article from the American Farrier's Journal, an article written by Deb Bennett, talking about the straightness of a horse's foot and the effectiveness of straightness of a horse's foot.
Right. And so much of that is driven by, as far as the straightness of the foot. People, well, my horse's foot's not straight. Well, your horse's back is not up. Your shoulder is locked. Your leg is misaligned. And you may be riding a horse, and I had a situation some years ago where all of a sudden I got panic calls about a horse moving because someone had had a knee surgery, and they got on the horse with this great big ugly brace, and then all of a sudden what I was doing was a problem. And they wouldn't hear of it because they always rode the same. Although all of a sudden the horse was not tracking in a straight line.
Meanwhile, the brace on the rider's leg was jutting into the horse.
That had nothing to do with it. It was all what I was doing. What have I gone and done to the horse?
So it was your fault, Mike.
Oh, exactly. You know, it flows downhill, ferries on the bottom.
Right, exactly. And also, the Hock Joint that you have here, and I'm going to switch back over to camera 3. Tell us about your Hock Joint and the reason why you have this Hock Joint and the...
Well, it's a good demo tool, and talking about flex, get an idea what the flexion looks like, and if the leg's working too straight, you're absorbing shock through the bone column. If it's flexing, you're absorbing it through the muscle structure, and you can see it in the muscle. You don't even have to move a horse to see it. You get just to looking at them, and there it is.
You do a little field test on them.
A little field test. Ray could tell you if a horse is flexing in the back end just by running his hand across the shoulder in the front because of overload problems.
All right, guys, if you have a question for Mike Stine, if you have any contacts that you want to get to Mike Stine, any pictures you want to send to Mike Stine, the way you do that is go to equinedynamics.com. At the top of the page says contacts. Fill out that little form. Make sure you put a return address because we'll send you out some magnets, some stickers from the show here, just saying thank you for being part of the show of Equine Dynamics. On behalf of Mike Stine over there,
have a good day. Have fun with your ponies. Thank you.
My name is Travis, saying see you next week.
Dream of someone. Hi, Lucky.
Good night, Ned.
Hi, Dusty.
Good night, Ned.